Good morning. It's Wednesday and we are halfway through the week already. It's hard to believe, a short week. And it's a really interesting day. We have somebody very special with us this morning, Ibarra from the organization and a fellow executive director of a nonprofit organization. So I have a lot of love for that. Xinampa, and she's going to talk about what they do. She's in Salinas, and mostly their work is focused in the Salinas Valley, but of course the things that they do could be things that could be done throughout the country. So this is going to be very interesting, and I'm looking forward to it. It's all a learning for me today as well. As we start, we'll do our normal round robin around the state, and today's question is, in this time,
Okay, so I think we lost Mary. If it's just me, I don't know. I hope this works because I'm not a host. But we will go around the state. The question is, what brings you joy in these times? So we'll start off with Dana.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Dana Baker, coming to you from Red Bluff. I'm the Tehama County Farms Coordinator. And during this time, what has been bringing me joy is just having the time to go out and spruce up my garden beds and plant a garden and truly just kind of give and to this place, our home, that we're raising our kids and having them take part in that.
Hi, my name is Joseph Montoya. I'm the Farms Leadership Coordinator for the Sacramento Valley. And something that I'm appreciating about this time is just that it feels like time has sort of changed the way that we live. It just feels like a lot of things have just sort of slowed down, and really appreciative just for being able to, I don't know, it just feels like I have more time with my family. And so I'm really appreciative of that.
Awesome. Good morning. My name is Romy Wattenbarger. I'm the current county farms coordinator here in Bakersfield. And I would say it would be, I feel like I get more things done that I wouldn't than normally. So just going outside or just getting little things done like chores or planning or that kind of stuff done. So I'm really happy for that.
Awesome. And I'm Katie Workman. I'm the Central Valley Farms Leadership Coordinator, coming to you from Fresno. What's bringing me joy right now is kind of, I feel like we were going, and we kind of just stopped everything, and we're just living life. And I have a 5-year-old, and we wouldn't be able to do this kind of stuff if we were still just going. So, and that we're healthy. So thankfully we're healthy and our garden's planted, and we're just crazy with this heat, but we will get started. Good morning, Anna. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us about your work with Xinampa.
Great, thank you so much for having me. My name is Ana Ibarra, and I am the Executive Director at Xinampa, which is a nonprofit organization in Salinas, California, that is focused on developing an equitable bioeconomy. And we do this through workforce development, business incubation, and science literacy and education.
Awesome. Can you tell us about your background, where you're from, what got you into this, maybe where you went, where you went to school, those types of questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you a little bit about my background, my family background. I was born in Mexico and moved to the US when I was about 11 years old. My family has always worked in agriculture, either directly, indirectly, and to different capacities as well. My grandfather was a bracero, so he used to come to the US and work, and then he owned his farm. We grew corn. We grew different crops as well, but mostly corn. And then with that, my family produced tortillas in a factory. So we had a factory tortilla, and that was sort of like how we lived. We had a family business, and then my grandfather would travel to the US and work with farmers here in California. Mostly, I believe, the Central Valley. And in the 90s, some policies changed, so it was more worthwhile for our family to follow the demand for labor, and we moved to the US. My family worked in mostly berry farms here in the Central Coast in Watsonville, but we also lived in the Central Valley, and some of my family members actually live in the Central Valley, and that's where they settled. But I grew up in the Watsonville area, graduated from Watsonville High School, then eventually found my way back to our local community college in Salinas, Hartnell Community College. There, I found a great opportunity to work under Dr. Carolee Bull, who is a phytobacteriologist at the USDA, or was. She's currently in the plant pathology department at Penn State. But I worked with Dr. Carolee Bull, which was a great experience. I got to take on more responsibility in the lab in terms of like carrying out experiments on my own and publishing. And so my work was focused on isolating and identifying pathogens associated with bacterial leaf spot disease. So I worked there for about 2 years, then transferred to UC Berkeley. I initially transferred to UC Berkeley to study molecular intelligence, MCB, but changed my major to integrated biology and public health. So I was very passionate about public health. I had some exposure of community-based work prior to transferring to UC Berkeley. So that was it, kind of like prompted me to look further into the public health major. And it was a great combination. I learned a lot. At UC Berkeley, I continued to do wet lab research, but then after graduation, I had an opportunity to work at the School of Public Health full-time, doing policy evaluation. So it was more like focused on policy evaluation related to policies in schools related to nutrition. I worked on the soda tax evaluation in Berkeley and San Francisco and Oakland. So that was very different than my previous experience, but it was very it was great. It was a great experience to have exposure to that. Especially my mentor, Dr. Chris Mattson, who is also the director of the Berkeley Food Institute. So I had a lot of exposure to like food systems and always tying it back to health, community health, and the intersection of all of these disciplines together, and what the what could come out of integrating those and using an interdisciplinary approach to solutions for communities. So based on that, I became a little bit more interested in what the future is in terms of agriculture, science, health, policy, food systems. So inspired by some of my colleagues that I had met back in Salinas that I went to school with in Hartnell, who are now experts in the biotechnology field, we saw an opportunity we saw a need and then an opportunity as well to start a nonprofit that is focused on looking into the future and leveraging biotechnology for here in Salinas, because we're proximal to agriculture. We always see the opportunity there. to reinforce the industry and work with the industry, but also looking into different applications of biotechnology as well. Yeah, but definitely always tying it back to agriculture.
Awesome. Would you like to start your screen share and tell us more about what you're doing and your projects that you're doing now, and maybe how they're related to right now with coronavirus and what's going on?
Absolutely. So, as I mentioned, let's see if it's sharing.
Yeah, we see your screen.
Okay, perfect. So, quick introduction. We focus on workforce development as one of the prongs, science, literacy, and education. So I can talk about that and some of the workshops that Xinampa has done in the past. But most recently, in relation to the coronavirus and response to that, we launched an initiative developing PPE for farm workers specifically. So can go ahead and talk about that.
Yes, please. This looks awesome.
So I am very fortunate to be working with a very, very talented team. We have different backgrounds. Some of us are in bioengineering, public health. We have a board member who is a biodesigner. So through her experience, her name is Corinne Takara, and through her experience in making and fabrication, and just working in the makerspaces, having one in her own home, she was able to create this very extensive network of individuals that became activated because of the coronavirus and started fabricating protective equipment. Initially, the groups that she and actually, like most groups that were out there fabricating PPE, were focused on healthcare workers. But we, through our conversations and our experience, some interactions that we had with community members here, we realized that there was a big need for creating PPE for ag workers and our essential ag workers who may be at risk of more exposure, and of course, they have to be out there working. So protecting them was of high importance. We rolled out this initiative, started looking into the design of PPE out there, existing designs, and really looking into what were the best designs, what were feasible in terms of like scaling up and producing at larger scale, like looking into designs that had like components that were 3D printed versus ones that didn't. And then also connecting with groups that were producing PPE, some schools in the Bay Area that were sewing masks, and just connecting with them so that we could provide supplies to farm workers. So we tapped into our network and we connected with some farms, initially with Good Farms in here in Watsonville, and started delivering some of that PPE. We also were very concerned about I guess not the quality overall, but what were the what did the farm workers think about the PPE? Was it useful? We were looking into evaluation, so we created some evaluation around that. to gauge like what was really needed and what was really useful, instead of just, you know, producing and like putting out all these materials out there. So here's the introduction, how we got involved, what were our goals, and then basically discovery and learning that could help us extend this further beyond the response to COVID-19, and really looking into designing PPE for farm workers that is suitable for the 21st century. So I think there's a lot of need there. So we're kind of looking into that space, and envisioning the future, you know, where we can design like using human-centered approaches to design like PPE that's a 21st century PPE, using perhaps other materials and leveraging our team's expertise to do so. So we have here a list of our partners. So these are the farms that we distributed to. Center for Farm Worker Families, we distributed 100 face shields and masks. Swattenberry Farms, Good Farms, and then we also worked with Líderes Campesinas and ALAS, which is an organization in Half Moon Bay that is focused in providing resources to farm workers. So we work with those organizations that are already established in the community and that were able to provide some assistance, and for us to also provide some PPE for their needs. And then these are some of the partners mostly in the Bay Area. So we reached out to some groups here in Central Coast, but you know, we were able to get connected with these individuals that were producing PPE for healthcare workers as well. So it was a lot of like sharing very important information and knowledge and wisdom in regards to design, and just that kind of collaboration was very, very inspiring to see, you know, the networks being formed and the collaborations and sharing, and you know, suddenly we would have someone from New York like send some material so we could use for printing or for cutting. So that was very amazing to see the response and the concern for our essential ag workers. So here are some of the designs, like in our experience, what we learned. This will describe a little bit of how the, you know, here on the right, on your right, I think it's your right, you can see different designs. Some include like components that were 3D printed, so those took very long to print and it wasn't feasible to scale up. Some here, some of the designs on the left are more like, you can fold them like origami. So those you could print faster. So we decided to go with those, and then ask for feedback in regards to the band and if they were able to stay on for long periods of time. So this is what we explored. This is how they looked like with the band. Eventually, the little band was taken out based on feedback. But here's some more diagrams that kind of explain like the different types of masks. And of course, like some of these designs like will work better in different settings. What we found actually was that our first feedback was that the face shield was perhaps too much. With the heat, it could fog up. So we looked into trying a material that prevents fogging up. But also looking into only distributing masks for workers that are out in the field, and perhaps using the shields for other, like in other settings within the field as well, like you know, punchers or people that have different roles that are exposed to a lot of individuals coming or being in contact with a lot of individuals, like the puncher, for example, like that could be useful for a person that is doing that. And then we reached out to the Grower Shipper Association to ask if there's a need. We offered the shields in case they are needed in different settings, like packing facilities or other places. So let's see. Here is all the information. If you'd like to learn more, you can go to our website and read through the design process and take a look at some pictures. We also have a lot of this information on our social media. So if you go to our Instagram accounts, you'll see the documentation and like the dates when we delivered these. And here are some instructions on to how to care for the PPE. So that's just like one of the things we got involved with last minute. This was, as you all are also experiencing, we've all had to adapt and respond to the current situation that we find ourselves in. And for us, connecting with our community is important, and coming from the community, from a community, or having experiences in our families where either our parents or grandparents or family members worked in the fields, like we understand how important this is. And then tying this all to food systems, for example, we all know how important it is to keep the supply chain healthy and vibrant, and the workforce really is part of that process and part of keeping the supply chain intact, especially the food supply chain. So this was dear to our hearts because of that, and because of the implication it has on our ability to continue to produce food and feed people. And as you know, that's important to us here in Salinas and in California, really, because it is the backbone. Like, we are all directly or indirectly involved in agriculture somehow, and it's important.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. I was thinking, and you said the time frame, that must have been quick, because unless it was something you were kind of working on for just in general, to have those PPE practices on the farm and things like that, but that's very quick.
Yeah. And I mean, we, Corinne Takara and Rolando, our chair, Rolando Perez, they had been thinking about design in general, not protective equipment design, personal protective equipment design, but design for field settings, for example, that is more in tune with 21st century approaches, just revamping that. They had been thinking about that, but not specifically like protective equipment for farm workers in this capacity. So yeah, it was very quick, and I really attribute the success of this to the expertise in that our team brings. Not just in terms of being able to produce, like having a 3D printer and a laser cutter, right? But also being able to research extensively and reach out to the community that's doing this very well. So we're very lucky to have those individuals that are experts already and that have been working in this space for some time.
Yeah. And Letty had mentioned you're working with youth programs. What are you doing with them?
Yeah. So we rolled out a couple of workshops. We became a nonprofit in November of last year, so we're very new. The goal is to have a space, which we are looking into. We will hopefully have a space when when the restrictions are lifted and we're able to move forward with the plan that we can have. But we will have a space with a lab, with access to a wet lab, and perhaps like a capability for fabrication, like kind of like a makerspace, where we can roll out instruction and provide more education to the community at large. But what we did, given that we don't have a space yet, we partnered up with Digital Nest, which is a nonprofit in Watsonville and Salinas. They provide, they are focused on ag tech, and they provide education to students and opportunities to learn, for example, how to code and how to gain skills that can give them entry-level jobs in technology, specifically to here also tapping into like the ag industry. So jobs that could, that might open up in that space. They do that kind of preparation already. And we partnered up with Digital Nest to deliver a workshop where we showed students how to program an OpenTrans robot. So we got OpenTrans is a company that produces low-cost liquid handling robots. So these are typically very expensive. These models are more accessible. So they have like a vision of creating like more access by producing low-cost products that could be used in the lab. That's kind of like what we're into, accessibility, low cost, open source. So we got these robots from OpenTrans, and then we taught students how to program them, and then incorporated art into the curriculum, and made sure that it was like culturally relevant and appropriate for the students, so that they could feel connected to a topic that's typically perhaps intimidating or less accessible. So it was a great experience. We did that over a week, and then we were supposed to do actually a follow-up to that, where we were going to work with a local startup in ag, to actually use the robot and use samples to collect data. So really like taking the skills that the students had learned in terms of initial programming, but now taking it out into the real world application. But then we unfortunately the virus started spreading, so we had to pivot, and we ended up having to pivot. You guys are still seeing my screen, correct?
No, we're not.
No? Okay. I can share that, but we pivoted into rolling out an online workshop called What's Up with COVID. So the students from Digital Nest that were part of our initial workshop participated there as well. We did some additional recruiting. So the students got to learn biotechnology fundamentals, and then really go deep into the infection process and learn more about the virus itself, while incorporating diagnostic tool information, and just looking more into the actual science of the virus. Let me see if I can share.
I feel like this is so complex, and there's so many questions, and we're at 11 o'clock, but go ahead and show us what you're going to show us. do you work with like certain schools? What if schools had these opportunities to help make masks? Would you work with those students, or is it just, I don't even know what to ask myself.
Yeah, so some high schools that have maker spaces, I believe it was some private high schools in the Bay Area that reached out and started just literally sewing masks for us. Like, we would ask the farmer how many units they needed, and then we would ask if they could be produced. So then we would, pick them up from these schools and these volunteers, like students, teachers, and maker spaces that leverage their equipment to give us the units. So yeah, that was it was a possibility. We're kind of we're winding down from that. We're not it's not feasible for us because we're not a production. We don't have the capacity to produce thousands of units, or hundreds of thousands of units, right? Like here in Salinas, we have there's probably like upwards of 80,000 farm workers in Monterey County. So you need to produce a lot. So that's not our space. It was sort of like just like a pilot project. But we are going to connect, if there's a need, just connect them with other groups that are working to produce this at scale. I know some fashion designers have ramped up their production of PPE rather than producing garments, and like Nike, Under Armour, they all repurposed their time and facilities to produce PPE. So that's we see ourselves moving into design of, could be PPE, but in general, like system design for ag work. 21st century system.
So awesome. We have a student that has a question, and I think Letty can unmute her. And Mia, if you'd like to ask your question, maybe. I don't know how to do it on my end. Okay, let's see.
I unmuted Mia. Are you there, Mia?
Oh, it still looks like, go ahead. Okay, Mia, go ahead, sorry. Maybe, or I can ask it for her. So her question is, how many farms have you helped in total, if you know?
Yeah, we've helped 4, I think.
4 farms?
Yeah, and directly, but indirectly through Líderes Campesinas and Alas, we've probably served more.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I still have so many questions, but we're at 11:05. I think this is amazing work that you're doing, and so how you got it turned around so quickly, and how you're able to encourage students to help others, I think is also very awesome. I don't know if the coordinators have any other questions, but if you want to just kind of end out maybe what your hopes and dreams are for the upcoming, I don't know, handful of months or a year or so. I don't know what you're working on for the future, if you see anything kind of, what you're working on.
Yeah. So I think, given our audience, I just want to say, like, we see a future where, because really the future is it depends on the youth, and depends on what they do. Like, we have a lot of issues coming our way, not just in terms of like this pandemic or other possible pandemics, issues with lack of food, starvation, but by 2050, the forecast is that we will need to produce much more food in order to be able to sustain humans in this earth. So we have a convergence of that, and then climate change, rapid population growth, climate change, and that's very much tied to our ability to produce food. So agriculture there. So being able to solve issues around that really depends on youth. So we hope that we can provide a space where youth can engage and really be enfranchised, the community at large be enfranchised into conversations around biotechnology. Because if we're looking into the future of food and the future of human survival and species survival for that matter, we cannot leave biotechnology out of the conversation. So providing spaces where everyone feels enfranchised to be part of that conversation and take action is going to be very important. So we really see a future where the point of nucleation for community engagement and community leadership and community control of that technology happens is important. So I think if I can give any advice to the youth on this call would be to look into how biotechnology fits into your future, and hopefully we are able to provide the space for young individuals to engage and really contribute, because it's going to be highly needed. It's going to be very important, and we cannot just leave it to the few professionals in the space. It has to be a collaborative process, and you don't have to be a bioengineer, right? I don't have a background in bioengineering. I have a background in public health, but everyone brings something to the table. I think future built with biology that is equitable for everyone can only happen if we leverage all of our experiences and our backgrounds to be a very intersectional and collaborative process is how we are going to achieve that. So I would just advocate for everyone to think about biotechnology in their own and how that fits into their role. And I'm very hopeful for the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. Sorry we had a little bit of technical difficulties, but we're almost at the end of these, and we've kind of learned to run with the, roll with the punches. So thank you so much for your work in safety and farm workers and just working with our youth. We appreciate it, and hopefully we can continue to work with you in the future.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye-bye.